Hey guys, so I just finished up 2 full 30-minute sessions at Atlanta Motorsports Park on this beautiful YZF-R7, and it is definitely, it is not what I was expecting. Actually, I wasn't expecting anything, if we're gonna be honest. I had no clue what this bike would feel like. I was told it was a completely different and new machine. You know, it's not taking place of the R6, it's not competing with the Twins Cup, you know, so it's definitely different. From what I can say right now is it's amazing. This track is incredibly technical, and literally almost every single corner is blind, so I was very intimidated to get on here. Never been. This bike just made it so easy to learn. It was effortless. It handles amazingly. It turns on a dime. There's just so many good things that I can say about it. So first general impression is really been awesome. So I gotta totally give it up to Josh Hayes for sticking around and actually taking us on a track walk or ride. We went around a couple times and having him tell us all about the corners, where to put the wheel, where to run out, you know, that made a significant difference considering this track is so blind and it is pretty tight. So that was really awesome and helped a ton. Getting on the bike, I instantly noticed how narrow the seat is. The cockpit's very roomy. Bars are out nice and wide, even for a sport bike, giving you great leverage. So again, another wonderful feature for the street. You can see my knees lock into the tank very comfortably. Even though this is not as aggressive as an R6, I had very great full mobility, still could get in a very aggressive tuck and hang off the bike, no problem. The seat height is slightly lower at 83.5 centimeters than the R6, but like I said, that important feature of the front of the seat being so narrow is what really makes the difference when you're touching your feet down to the ground. I am 5'8" and I cannot flat foot an R6 or an R1. I'm actually barely tippy-toeing it. On this bike, I could fully flat foot it simply because of how nice and narrow that seat and the end of the tank is. So comfort aside, let's see how she rolls. Never having ridden a large CC bike on AMP, I was definitely nervous. I've been to this track once before and ridden as a passenger in a car, and it was utterly terrifying. Like I mentioned earlier, everything is blind. So it was actually really nice and reassuring that as soon as I rolled out of hot pit, I actually didn't have to think about what I was doing on the bike or figure it out. It just naturally clicked. It really felt like I was one with the machine right away. Typically, it takes me a moment to get used to a bike, to get a feel for the engine, the acceleration, the brakes, and I don't know, there was something oddly familiar and comforting about riding this R7. It just felt right from the get-go. So I got out there and honestly, I didn't even have to think about what I was doing on the bike. Everything came very naturally and I could focus on the track itself. I think the biggest reason I felt so confident on this machine was because of the suspension setup. Now, I've ridden the MT-07 and I have to admit I was not fond of that suspension at all. I actually had a couple tank slappers and it was a rough ride, very squirrely. The front end was loosey-goosey. So initially I was a little worried how the R7 would feel. But to my surprise, it felt great. Yamaha did a great job with upgrading the suspension. The front comes with a 41mm KYB USD forks. They're adjustable for preload, rebound, and compression. The rear comes with a KYB shock, and that's also adjustable for preload and rebound. Having that suspension adjustability is just such a big deal because you can push the bike, you can trail brake harder, you can just have, a lot more fun with the machine and really feel what it can do and push it to its limits. So that's definitely something that's a really nice added bonus. Overall, the chassis felt nice and firm, but it still flexed as you cornered. The bike just overall gave me a very nice solid feel, both on the front end and the rear swing arm. So that's huge for track day riding and of course on the street. This is a 689cc inline twin cylinder CP2 engine. It's got the cross-plane 270-degree crankshaft and offset cylinders, which gives this motor its very unique exhaust pulse and very smooth power delivery, all the while having that grunty torque, even in the lower RPMs. So I found myself experimenting with how I was entering the corners and in what gear. And some of the second gear corners I started entering in third gear and realized I could carry a little bit more roll speed, but at the same time still had that grunt to get out of the corner, even though I wasn't going that much faster. So even in the higher gear, the bike still really pulled me along. So I can really see that being a benefit on the street as well. That being said, the biggest thing I want to point out about this machine is that while the horsepower is a lot less than, let's say, an R6, this bike has the power and the grunt to pull you along and give you that happy smile under your helmet, where an R6, you really have to wind it out and you don't start hitting its horsepower till 9 or 10,000 RPMs. And I think that's something that most people don't consider, is that horsepower isn't everything if you can't access it. So I felt Yamaha really nailed it down with this R7. The power is there, it's accessible really early on. Many manufacturers right now are putting all these bells and whistles on bikes, but Yamaha kept this one simple. There's really not much electronics on the bike. You can opt for a quick shifter, which I highly encourage. Quick shifter is probably the most fun you can have on a super sport bike. Unfortunately, the one that they offer only does regular shift, so you cannot adjust it to do GP shift. So you may want to consider an aftermarket part if that is something that you are used to riding. Yamaha also included a slipper clutch on this model, which is a really nice added bonus. I again am used to not having one, but riding newer machines that have them now, it definitely makes riding easier and really just takes out one aspect out of the equation of riding, especially when you're on the street and you're focusing, on cars, debris, whatever it is that's coming around that corner. The last thing you need is to be spinning up your rear wheel. So the slipper clutch is for sure a nice little added bonus. So I'm not gonna get into all the different specifications of, what the bike looks like and the LCD screen. Yes, there's a whole bunch of little new goodies on it, but what I really want you to take away from this review is the first rider impression of what the bike felt like, what it was capable of, and who this machine is for. I truly feel that in the hands of a new rider, this is a wonderful bike that they can grow into. It's still got a lot of CCs, you still have to respect it. It's definitely no 250 or 300, but at the same time, it is easy enough to ride that I feel a new rider can jump on and learn and take their time. And they're not gonna grow out of it as quickly as you would out of a 250 wanting that little bit more power. And likewise, I feel in the hands of a very skilled rider, this bike is just a ton of fun. It's confidence inspiring. It's just enough cc's and power that, you know, you can really flog it around and use all of that power and kind of push the bike, its abilities and your abilities. And from experience, I can tell you that is the best feeling. I have the most fun when I ride the bike and push it to its limit rather than the bike riding me and pushing me beyond my limits. Well guys, thanks so much for watching this review. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed riding the Yamaha R7. Please feel free to leave any questions or comments below and I will get back to you. Please go check out womenridersnow.com. There you will be able to read my full review on the Yamaha R7.